Situated in northeast Africa, Ethiopia covers about 500,000 square miles. It's a country of geographical contrasts. There are valleys as low as 400 feet below sea level, mountains which stretch as high as 15,000 feet. Agricultural and pastoral pursuits support over 80% of the population. Subsistence farming and livestock grazing are the rule. Some of the earliest traces of mankind are found in Ethiopia. Evidence of cereal agriculture dates back to several thousand years before the birth of Christ. It's estimated more than half of Ethiopian produce is carried by pack animals. Roads are few. The majority of farms are located at least a day's walk from the nearest road. Deforestation, overgrazing, and poor agricultural practices have contributed to soil erosion so severe, particularly in the northern Tigray and Eritrea regions, that substantial areas of farmland have been lost to cultivation. Secessionist movements in the north, and ironically, the Marxist military government itself, are hampering development. Add to that at least 3 years when rains expected in January and February, June and July have not come, and the country now finds itself suffering perhaps one of the most devastating human tragedies ever: death by famine. Weak and malnourished, starving people fall prey to almost every known disease. It is to this country in crisis the 15 Northwest Medical Team members come to minister to those in need. From half a world away, people of the Northwest answer a distant cry for help. This is just the third time a plane has landed at the newly established feeding center at McCoy Village in the Ethiopia Valley. The World Vision aircraft are often the only way people and supplies get to and from the camps. The Ethiopia Valley is located about 150 miles north of Addis Ababa, the capital of Ethiopia. The plane's arrival and our camera brings out the curious. Somehow, the Ethiopia Valley retains some green in spite of the drought. At 5,000 feet above sea level, it's still considered a lowland. No rain for 1 year has left once productive banana trees barren. Water for irrigation is scarce. Ironically, just 3 meters below the ground, there is water. Well drilling technology is not developed in Ethiopia. World Vision feeds about 1,500 people a day at McCoy Camp. As in other feeding centers, the people are fed according to body weight. The most malnourished are on intensive feeding schedules. The people of the Ethiopia Valley are totally dependent on food supplied at the center.
The story I've been told is that Afro-nomadic tribesmen came into this valley, the Ethiopia Valley, about 6 to 8 months ago with approximately 100,000 head of cattle, and essentially took over the area just by squatters' rights, started taking over the town, the local villagers' homes, and grazed the grass to nothing. And eventually the government forced these people to leave, but that left a desolated landscape and no food and no rain.
I do that all the time. I probably wash my hands 50 times a day.
Portland emergency room physician Jay Kravitz came to McCoy one day after his arrival in Ethiopia. He's here because of an emergency. He's helping with an outbreak of cholera. It's the first reported in a World Vision Center. Cases of the disease were reported at the camp 3 days before Kravitz's arrival. 2 days after his arrival, 8 people are dead. 51 cases are under treatment. For Kravitz and other members of the Northwest Medical Team, the cholera outbreak serves as a lesson in foreign politics. There is no doubt the disease is cholera, although they have no laboratory analysis to confirm it. But the Ethiopian government will not acknowledge the outbreak. If it is recognized, the country runs the risk of an international clampdown on produce exports, one of the country's few economic resources. And tourism, another important income source, would decline. However, without recognition, proper precautions are not taken to help control the outbreak outside the camp.
Any very infectious disease of this sort needs specific measures to contain it and to treat it. And the first thing that matters, of course, is that you find out what it is, so you take the right measures. If that doesn't happen, and if people who may be carriers of whatever the infection is move around the country, then all that's happening is that time bombs are being placed all over the country that typically would explode within 72 hours with another outbreak.
Also helping with the cholera outbreak is Don Scott, a nurse from Boise, Idaho.
Well, the most impressive thing here is what a good job the national staff is doing. They're very expert people at what they're doing, and the people who are working for World Vision here are just doing a terrific job.
How have you felt emotionally?
Well, I spent it's hard.
I guess that tells the story.
Yeah, these are all good folks.
What's the river's name?
Mike Glassy is a lab technician from Salem, Oregon. While he is waiting to set up laboratory equipment at another feeding center farther north, he is tracking the cholera outbreak. First, he finds out how the people in the camp came in contact with the disease.
If we don't do this, then very likely their family members will come down with cholera. So prevention's better than treatment. This is my interpreter, Mulgeta, and I'm training him to do this job so when that I leave here, he'll be able to continue on.
Once the source of the disease and family connections are known, Glassy and Mulgata go to the homes and talk with family members.
Yeah, they definitely need education, and that's part of our job too. We do what we call what I call the speech, and the speech is boil your water before you drink it, wash your fruits and vegetables before you eat them, use the latrine if you have one. If you don't, make one. And that's part of the follow-up when we go up to their houses and make sure that they've taken their medications that we give them, prophylactic medications, and to inspect their houses and see that they have a latrine. Part of the problem is we don't have any soap for them to wash with, and some of them don't have pots, to boil the water, so there's a lot of problems.
Glassy's walk takes him to a large ravine where waters used to roar down the canyon. Now the trickle sounds like silence to those who need water.
Okay, they're doing what we tell them. Now if they use them.
Yes.
That blanket back there, that came with the sick person?
Yes, yes.
They need to boil that blanket before they use it.
Yes.
You need to tell them that.
Okay.
While the cholera outbreak is of great concern, it is not the only disease at Ansokia. There are those suffering from Shigella, another disease of severe diarrhea, bacterial meningitis, typhoid fever, and typhus. Dr. Kravitz has been treating 2 children for meningitis, but the standard antibiotic treatment isn't working. He now suspects typhus and is changing treatments.
This is something that I'm just becoming aware of now. It is endemic in the area, but it's not something that I've ever seen before. But these cases are potentially fairly classic in the description. They've been going progressively downhill for the last couple of days, and what I really thought was meningitis may not in fact be. It's hit and miss in a lot of it. Most of the treatments, aside from things that are obvious, are empirical treatments, which means that you treat what you see and hope that people will get better without a definitive diagnosis.
You sure look sick.
He is. I think he's going to die.
Death is common in these tents. Seeing other children die, the fathers of these children ask for reassurance.
The father of that little child and this one here sort of looked at me with real pleading, frightened eyes. And today they're both near death. And whether they both survive or not, I don't have a clue. But it was emotional to watch them because they may have lost other family members already. And this may be, these are their babies. I'm struck by the sensitivity they have to their children. You usually get a response if this is the proper drug within 24 to 48 hours. So you guys may help watch the cure tomorrow morning. Time will tell.
For the parents, such nights are long.
I meant the child, so you got to hurry. Thank you.
Prognosis. Case fatality rate in untreated typhus may range from 10% to 60%. Deep coma, severe hypotension, tachycardia, associated with falling body temperature are signs of poor prognosis. That one little boy against the wall just was cold yesterday. Just really cold. I knew his temperature was like 94 or something like that.
Mornings are quiet times. Time to study about the little-known diseases of this country, but well-known in Africa.
Appropriate treatment reduces the mortality rate in ordinary severe typhus fever virtually to zero. So we'll see today if those kids are better.
After breakfast, mornings are spent checking new patients, people who gather during the night and dawn hours.
The patients are very gentle. They're very depressed. They don't cry or show a tremendous amount of emotion here when somebody that they love has died. But they're very pliable and compliant. I've had essentially no resistance from anyone in attempting to provide medical care for them. They're willing to accept needles and pills. They complain a little bit, but nobody really resists the treatments that are being offered. And the conclusion is that I'm watching a lot of people getting well, and it doesn't take very long to watch the improvement begin.
Such is the case with the two children treated the day before.
This is really a happy ending. This child here and the one behind me, I thought yesterday probably had typhus, which I had not seen before, and I gave them the treatment of choice from textbook description. And this morning, two children who were very close to death are now going to survive. They're alert, they're sitting up, and they're drinking, so this is sort of exhilarating to see this happen. The obvious philosophical dilemma that we face when we watch somebody like this survive is I don't really know what kind of a life I'm going to give this child, because now he has to face, as he grows up, the tremendous problems that are present here. But at least we've saved them, and hopefully their lives will be better. The situation will improve. This is the father. We obviously can't talk with words, but we talk with expression, and watching his emotional state uplift is really sort of nice to see also.
It is for this Kravitz, Scott, and Glassy came to Ansokia.
And I really expect him to be dead. I got that. I really, truly did.
And everywhere through the city of Addis Ababa, there are signs commemorating the 10th year of the revolution. Until 1975, Ethiopia was ruled primarily through a monarch. It's ironic that an official cover-up of drought and famine brought about the revolutionary coup that deposed then-Emperor Haile Selassie. Lieutenant Colonel Mengistu Haile Mariam now heads up the military government. In 1976, he declared himself a Marxist and established links with Moscow. It's estimated 10,000 Ethiopians were killed between 1976 and 78. Thousands others were imprisoned without trial. Due process does not exist in Ethiopia, and arbitrary arrests are often the norm. Not only does the government hold tight rein politically, but economically. Ethiopia is one of the poorest countries in the world. After the revolution, the government took over almost every business enterprise in the country. Private investment is virtually nil. Western observers believe as long as the emphasis is on the military, there is little chance for much development. Ethiopia maintains the largest standing army in Africa. Its debt to Russia for arms purchases is said to total $2 billion. The government does allow the Orthodox Church to exist, but all other religion is discouraged. In 1981, the government took over churches, schools, and hospitals. The government also controls all journalists in the country, including foreign journalists. So-called government representatives accompany foreign journalists anywhere they travel. All foreigners must carry travel permits. And government officials censor any writing, photographs, or videotapes they believe to be unfavorable to Ethiopia. These videotapes were confiscated and censored anywhere there was reference to cholera.
Yeah. That would be...
In spite of the tight government controls, Lieutenant Colonel Mengistu seems to have substantial support. At this gathering at Revolutionary Square in Addis Ababa, thousands of Ethiopians come to hear Mengistu speak. In the speech, he asks for donations for famine relief, for 1 month's wage from government workers, and urges the prudent use of government vehicles and gasoline. Average per capita income in Ethiopia is about 160 American dollars a year. Mengistu's call for austerity receives a lukewarm response. Modern health care is rare, but in recent years has improved, but still reaches only small portions of the population. An Ethiopian can expect to live only 40 years. Tony Atkins, World Vision Director of the Ethiopian Famine Project.
It's not our place to be addressing the health care needs of the population, of the general population. That's not why we're invited into this country. Our strategic programming is directed towards nutrition, and so our medical departments direct their attention towards facilitating nutrition programming.
Alamada, the largest feeding center run by World Vision. It's about 2 hours air travel north of Addis Ababa. 10,000 people are fed here each day. 3 Northwest medical team members came to Alamada for their first assignments in Ethiopia. Carol King, a nurse from Cottage Grove. Also helping until they can set up a laboratory here are Barbara Oakes of Cathlamet, Washington, and Don Fitzgibbons of Vancouver, Washington, both lab technicians. Since the emphasis is on nutrition, particularly at Alamada, the women will be helping with the feeding program. The center provides emergency feeding mainly to malnourished children and to pregnant and nursing mothers. Those admitted into the feeding program are divided into groups depending on just how malnourished they are. Super-intensive feeding is provided for all children whose malnutrition is so severe that the ratio of their body weight to height is less than 70% of the recommended minimum and who are seriously ill. These children are fed almost every hour, some continuously. Shelters are also provided for the super-intensive children and their families.
You can feed a baby 2,000 calories and have him lose half of that keeping warm during the night.
Not only can the cold nights sap calorie strength, it's estimated that 20% of all food World Vision serves is consumed by intestinal parasites. Other feedings are given according to a body height to weight scale. They're given fafa, a high-energy porridge which is sweetened with corn syrup and fortified with cooking oil. In spite of its appearance, it is enjoyed. There are also feedings of high-protein biscuits and milk.
They had warm milk this morning and biscuits, and pretty soon they'll have some porridge. And I'm just helping pass it out. make sure they eat it. That's because some of the children are not eating very well, so you have to watch them, make sure they're eating.
While the feeding process is ongoing, so is the education.
Now they're singing a song about wash your hands, wash your hands.
Many of the diseases found in these camps are easily remedied with soap and water. The people are encouraged to wash often. Water in the feeding centers is piped from mountain springs, nearby wells, or in some cases trucked in daily. And at Alamada, for 10,000 people, it takes a lot of water to wash a lot of dishes.
Everything is washed after they feed once and then they wash it and they use it again. So it's washed 3 or 4 or 5 times a day. It's a big long line, you know, where it goes, starts at one end and goes to the other. And they're cleaning the pots too because it's the end of the day.
The day ends about 4:30 for the center workers. It's time to relax. Living quarters at Alamada are small apartments made of straw and mud. Meals are the traditional Ethiopian food, mostly wat, a spicy hot stew, eaten with injera, a spongy, flat, vinegar-tasting bread. Ethiopian people who work for World Vision are deeply religious Christians. Although it's difficult to be a Christian in this country under a Marxist rule, within the World Vision compound there is freedom to worship God. After a few English hymns, the group sings in Amharic, the national language. The singing and worship often go well into the night. Morning brings one of the most difficult tasks in the feeding centers, selecting those who can be admitted into the program. As dawn brightens into day, the rows of homeless refugees wait, mothers and fathers holding their children's outstretched arms to allow Dr. Hector Halipa and Nurse Carol King to feel the folds of skin.
If there's any fat between your fingers, then usually that child has got enough nourishment to keep them going. The ones that you can't feel anything are highly malnourished, and we choose them and we send them to either underweight or intensive.
4 years old. If she's 5, we can take her. This is the most difficult part of my job, the selection part. All the rest I can carry on, but the selection part, it takes a lot of hard decisions. You have to strengthen yourself so much, yeah. Otherwise you break down.
In the day I can't keep my composure. It's unreal. It hurts. You can fight the tears so long, and they have to come, you know. The love that I feel for these people is overwhelming.
Overwhelming, yes, looking at 10,000 men, women, and children whose only hope rests in the hands of so few.
As long as you can help some, you're doing something, you know. There's a few children here that are running around and playing. They were malnourished in severe intensive care, and they're running around now and playing. You know, that shows me there's some hope.
And border, the landscape is testimony to the drought crisis, barren, dried, and cracked with the lack of rain. Every day near Ibnat, more and more desperate people arrive at this hastily built refugee camp. Some walk for a week or more. Time and again, we hear the same story. The families had farms and cattle and harvested crops each year. For 5 years, the rain has not come. The cattle are gone, the crops are gone, even the seeds are gone. There's an Ethiopian saying that a dog is told there is a place where there is a mountain of meat and a sea of milk. He doesn't ask directions, he just starts running.
Well, you know, when people are desperate and they have lost all hope, they will go anywhere to find food or some kind of work.
Any feeding center acts like a magnet, drawing the refugees to food and newly established medical services. Nurses Marie Davis of Dallas, Oregon, and Catherine Williams of Salem are starting a skin and eye clinic. Many of the babies are affected with scabies, caused by a lack of cleanliness. Several washings, some medication, and the condition will be gone.
Some of these children, I think this is their first bath.
The freshened babies and moms wait to go through the screening process for the medical clinic. Davis explains it's important to begin education about keeping clean, particularly in this country where 1 out of every 125 children will become blind by the age of 4.
This baby here is a blind baby. Baby is also very, very malnourished. I'm not sure what the situation was, but I'm sure that the malnourishment didn't help any.
Blindness is usually caused by disease. Trachoma and conjunctivitis, two very common diseases caused by germs, are transmitted from one person to another, often carried by eye-seeking flies. Simply washing twice a day for 1 week can cure these otherwise blinding diseases. Vitamin A deficiency can also cause blindness.
He's blind. Yeah, he's blind. It's most likely either trauma at birth or vitamin deficiency that's caused blindness.
Just 1 strong dose of vitamin A can prevent blindness for up to 1 year. Not all diseases are so easily remedied. Caring for the critically ill in a less than clean facility in Ethiopia at times can be frustrating. Poor light and often the wrong kind of equipment.
They've been trying for about an hour now to get an IV in this baby and haven't been able to get a line in. This baby is suffering from typhus and has an extremely high temperature. I believe the last time it was measured it was about 106. Very dehydrated, very malnourished, and very, very ill child. Very poor prognosis. The baby is so dehydrated, the veins are just collapsed. Baby came in late this morning. The 2 nurses that you see here working with this baby are Danny Holly from Washington. She's a nurse practitioner, and the other is Linda Patrick from Salem, Oregon, and she's a very fine, experienced emergency room nurse. Both very experienced in IVs.
Lemmy Lim's had a burn on her arm, which has been bandaged, but under the bandage there's a wound about like this that the skin and the tissue is completely pulled away from, which shows there's no protein at all. She's very sick. She has both marasmus and kwashiorkor. Behind her ears, she's also breaking down where the skin is just pulling away from her little head here.
In their work, the Northwest Medical Team members are careful to work with the Ethiopian health workers, not against them. They use caution not to appear too pushy. Catherine Williams is learning to approach health care the way Adam, the head nurse, does. Sokia Sashet has brought her little sister to the medical clinic. She's been ill for several days. Adam determines the younger sister has a very high fever and congestion in the lungs, more than likely pneumonia from sleeping on the cold ground. Together, the 2 medical workers prescribe antibiotics. Sokia brought her sister to the clinic while her parents are waiting for dry rations distributed by the government. In recent weeks, international food aid has begun to arrive in the country. The Rehabilitation and Resettlement Commission, an Ethiopian government agency, is responsible for distributing 300,000 tons of food to the people. However, politics can interfere with the distribution. Fearing the food may get to rebel forces, the government often cuts off food distribution in the northern provinces, either by closing the airports or the roads. Usually it's both. Not only cutting off the rebels, but also their own starving people. Here at Ibnat, the airport has just reopened after several days of closure. Rebel activity, according to the government, the Northwest Medical Team members were not aware of any rebel activity. While the grain is now beginning to get to Ibnat, the roads and airport at Lalibela have been closed for 9 days. 10,000 refugees there cannot get access to the food which is in their own province. Trucks are another problem. World Vision could import its own trucks, but the government threatens to confiscate any truck larger than 2 tons. In addition, the government charges World Vision a $100 a ton fee to transport any food across country. When food draws people and it doesn't arrive, stopgap measures must be taken. Measures that are not the answer.
Basically, people come in when they hear there is food available, and then they camp in the town, and they receive what little supplies are available through government or other channels by dry ration distribution. And those rations are basically weight reduction rations, and so they continue to deteriorate in their condition until they qualify, their children qualify for entry into a feeding program, and then we endeavour to bring them back up to a bearable level of malnutrition. In a situation like this, there is one clear answer. The answer is food, and it's not putting porridge into the mouths of starving kids. It's handing out hundreds of tons of cereal, grain, maybe some supplementary food as families need it, and letting the families take it home and cook it.
Any medical treatment will be useless. This small packet has revolutionized the costly cure for dehydration. It replaces the expensive $40 IV and costs just 10 cents a dose. For less than the price of a package of gum, you could save the lives of 4 children. Please help. Even a small gift could make a life and death difference. Call the Northwest Medical Team in Salem, 399-TEAM, because if you won't help, we can't help.
World-class strip opened, and some of the Northwest medical teams were able to come to Lalabella. About 10,000 people have walked away from their homes, driven out by the drought and famine. They come to Lalabella seeking food and medical care. While 10,000 people gather here for food, the center can feed only about 8,000. Again, only the most malnourished are allowed to form lines for the food. Starvation has a quieting effect on the refugees. One is struck by the order in the centers. Seldom are there raised voices or frantic rushes for the food. However, the lines are monitored because there is a risk the most vulnerable will be pushed aside. Although this setting appears peaceful, Lalabella is considered a city under siege. The military controls the city. Rebels control the surrounding hills.
We've heard gunshots at night, or you hear the gate rattle at night. And, you know, they've had rebels in here. They took over camp last December, you know, took their trucks and
but never harmed them.
Didn't harm anybody at World Vision. They said, we know what you're doing a good job. Just keep on doing it, and they let us go ahead and work. So we've been assured as much as anybody can assure anyone else that we won't be harmed.
The living quarters for the Northwest Medical Team in Lalabella are apartments of corrugated metal mounted on pole frames.
It's just like high-class camping. It's been good. We've had really good food. The living situation has been fine.
Kathy Salmonson, a nurse from Seattle, Washington, nurse Sherry Pfeiffer from Portland, and Diane Van Order, an emergency room nurse at Tuolity Hospital in Hillsborough, are the first Northwest Medical Team members into Lalabella. They come with Dr. Travis Cavens, a pediatrician from Longview, Washington. Together, the 4 medical workers have made some inroads in the health care at the feeding center, which had become disorganized with the lack of staff during the recent government shutout.
Pediatric ward. Well, we're looking for the really malnourished child that might have been missed somewhere along the line, you know. Also, we're listening for that cough. You know, there's a little dry cough that isn't bad, but when there's that deep cough, you know, then here's a child that mother hasn't brought to clinic. Those are the children we want to find. We're seeing so many children brought in, last gasps, you know, and too late, and maybe the mothers walk for 2 or 3 days to get here, and the child dies in 2 days. But if I can get the children that still have some nourishment and they're just beginning their pneumonia, then we can save those.
Now, she still has pneumonia, though. Can she roll just a little bit this way? This way.
The team organized the medical tents according to disease.
We lose quite a few people yet, you know, and it's sad when that happens, and so I have these split emotions. I guess the first couple of days we didn't know how to get a handle on it, you know, and had to be here for a while and size up the situation, and then we struck out in some directions, and now we're feeling good about it, you know.
He's wonderful. He has
a sense of humor.
The greatest sense of humor. He can make a bad situation tolerable. He always has the right thing to say at the right time. He's a very kind man. He cares about his patients and the people he's working with, and we'll keep him.
We have you're ahead of me. Good show.
Me, a name I call myself.
Well, Diane is really the spark plug of our group, you know. Again, she has so much energy, and she's really, you know, got the energy to get things done, and really likes to work with people. She's just fell in love with playing doctor. You know, she was a paramedic when she went to Thailand in 1979, and she went back and went into nurses training. I told her I expect her, and maybe we'll meet together again in 5 years, and she'll be an MD by that time. Kathy is, again, a very sensitive person. I think she was a little down when she first came because, frankly, things were sort of disorganized, and this bothered her. And then again, when we decided to make that a pediatric ward, she really bit into that and is really organizing that. And she's a very professional nurse, and I really appreciate her help.
Okay, one more time. Who's baby? You tell her she's doctor, or her baby will be blind. Her little boy will be blind.
Sherry, I think of as the mother of the group. And she loves the children, you know, and she just has a heart that's so sensitive that I don't know how this is bothering her, you know, and she has children of her own, you know, I'm sure she sees her own children then, but she's just such a warm person.
Sherry is working with Ayalu Damena. He is 15 years old. A spinal tap shows he has meningitis and is critically ill.
Is it possible to feed him through IV rather than using this tube?
Yes, it is, but it's safer. Plus, we can give nutrition, which he really needs. He needs rehydration, which we're doing right now with the electrolytes, and then we'll give him Prosobi for nutrition because he obviously needs nutrition also. We can also give medication through the tube. Instead of giving it IV, we can give it either with liquid or crush up the pills and give it this way.
And medical supply also?
Damena's mother, Yurthagesh Tadessa, is 40. Ayalu is the oldest of her 5 children. 4 have died. Out of desperation, Tadessa came to Lalibela for medical care to save her one remaining son. Her husband, Coram, is trying to find food. Tadessa's son was a goat shepherd before the drought. Now the drought has devoured the goats and the farm where the family lived and threatens Damena.
Because they see more death, it doesn't seem to make it easier for them. They have the same feelings as we do, and especially when you see mothers and fathers lose their children, and you see the grief and the pain that they feel. And I feel the pain just watching them feel that pain. They feel just the same pain as if I lost one of my children.
If he has something to eat, you know, he prefers to go back to his house, but he doesn't have anything in the house, so he's just waiting for this aid here. For the last 2 years, we have been very much affected by this drought, The last couple months, he was selling some of his, items he had to survive. Now he's through with all that. He's here to get help. And he says he doesn't know what the future holds,
Okay. To answer the distant cry of the Ethiopian drought and famine victims is painful at times. But it is a positive experience for the Northwest Medical Team. It's a time when the lives of very different people meet, travel a short distance together, then separate. And for the Northwest Medical Team members, there is a satisfaction knowing that that short time together made a difference.
It's hard to keep your emotions under control. It's pretty heartbreaking. You just have to look at what's been done and the improvements and know that it's going to get better.
Sometimes the emotions just well up, yes. But I'm trying to have a balance. If you let your emotions get to you in seeing all this, you can't really function as well. And so, but sometimes, I mean, I'm human, and you just can't help it when you see somebody in such poor shape, or somebody that's died, and you see the families and suffering.
We see kids die, but we also see kids that look better. And 24 hours of antibiotics and food make a big difference in these kids. And especially seeing the parents come up to you and taking both their hands in yours and kissing it, and you can tell that there's been a difference made in their life, and you've given some hope to them.
It's just what you have to witness visually all the time that is so draining. And we come back and we're exhausted. We wake up in the morning, we're exhausted. And it's not the hours we keep. We get a lot of sleep, but yeah, just really draining.
I feel good personally. I get discouraged when people are dying or not doing well. And if I'm having trouble with a particular patient, I sort of have to try to suppress the sad emotion and just go on.
We'll, just take today. We're making a difference for some of the people, yeah.